used to tell myself I wasn't good with money. That's why I ended up in debt. That's why I struggled to make more money. That's why my financial life caused me so much stress. It's why I ignored my bank account until it was the final straw and I hit rock bottom with my money. I had to build myself back up from nothing in order to realize that being good with money isn't about being good at math or knowing everything about finances. It's building routines and habits that inch you closer to financial success one step at a time. And today I'm going to share one of those financial habits that I currently have in my own life, and that is my payday routine. So today is payday for my family, and I'm going to share what exactly we're doing in our current payday routine. This is something that has changed over time. It is different now than it was when I was in debt. It's different now that I'm married and have 2 kids than it was when I was a single person paying off debt the first time. There's a lot of changes, and my payday routine might not look like yours. I'm also not a financial advisor, so this is just my experience and my habits, what I've found to work for me financially. So do your own research and learn as much as you can if you are on your own journey to becoming financially free and successful. With that said, let's get into it and look at my payday routine. Right now, we get paid weekly. This is something that is relatively new for us. I was a bi-weekly paycheck budgeter for years, and then about a year or two, my husband started getting paid weekly at his job. He's a salary employee. It's a little bit different. This is the first time that we've been paid weekly, but I found that I loved it so much I started paying myself weekly because I am a self-employed person and can do that. So now we have a weekly paycheck. Every single week we get our paycheck, and this is the routine that I follow once we get paid. The very first thing is to check your checks. So we definitely make sure that I had my paycheck come through correctly. I have it all set up automatically, so I get paid automatically a certain amount per week, and that's worked really well for us. This is something that I've set up as a self-employed person to kind of automate and regulate my income, so I don't get paid the same thing every month, and that can be really stressful and hard to budget sometimes. So with Relay, the financial technology company that I use for my business checking account, I'm able to have automations that put money where it belongs, including into a paycheck fund. And then every week I have that automated payment to me, to my personal account, so that then we can budget as a family with my husband's paycheck as well. And that has been amazing. It's helped so much, and it definitely has regulated how much we are able to accomplish with our budget and with our money, because I have a steady income instead of having one month where it's huge, one month where we don't have enough to pay bills. Having that regular amount has really been helpful. So that is what I do, and I just check every single payday to make sure that that has come through and it's worked. And then I also make sure we check my husband's paycheck, because paychecks can be wrong. There are problems sometimes. I have had incorrect paychecks before, back when I worked for other companies, and it's just really good to get in the habit of making sure that your deductions are right, your 401k is correct, it came out, your insurance came out correctly, any deductions you have, make sure that that is all correct. It's really important just to quickly look at and make sure your paycheck's the right amount, because mistakes do happen. So for me in my current stage, I like to have the very first thing is to pay myself first. Pay yourself first categories are crucial. They are the things that you're going to put money toward first before any other spending and bills. And those are things that are going to get you ahead financially. And for us right now, it is our Roth IRAs and our house savings funds and our investments. Inside our investments category, we have 529 plans for both of my children so that we are investing for their future college expenses. And then we also have a taxable brokerage account. Actually, we have a couple, one in my name, one in my husband's name, and we do contribute to those. So we do have a lot of different pots for us personally at this stage of life where we are contributing money to invest and to grow our wealth. Compound interest is amazing. So basically with investing, the earlier you can start, generally the better, because it compounds over time, and then your money that's actually invested is earning money and making your investments grow faster than even what you might be contributing. That is a wonderful thing, and it's something that you might not be getting right now because you didn't start early, but that's okay, because yes, the best time to invest is 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now, today. So if you aren't investing in either retirement accounts or a taxable brokerage account, you can start now depending on your personal situation. And of course, that's what we do for our paycheck routine, our payday routine. But depending on where you are, it might be different. These categories might be different. If you have credit card debt, I always put that in this category first. It's definitely something you need to be paying and getting rid of, because if you're working with an interest rate that's really high in the wrong direction, that's going to cancel out any gains you have elsewhere. So paying yourself first means getting all of these really important financial things together, and your categories here might be different than mine, but it's always important, I think, to make sure that these things are taken care of first before anything like your spending. And the great thing about the pay yourself first category is that this is something that you can automate. You can either automate based on a certain number per week. Maybe you want $150 per week going into a savings account, or maybe you know that monthly you want to put $500 into a Roth IRA. You can automate that. You can set up those automatic transfers so that it doesn't without you even thinking about it. You basically just plan for it when you are doing your initial budgeting for the year, or whenever you set up your initial financial situation and plan. And then on payday, you just make sure that those transfers actually happen. It does all the work for you. You just take 2 seconds to look and see and make sure it worked, and then you're good to go. But that always comes out first for us, just so that we are set there and don't have to worry about, are we actually working on our future? Are we building our wealth? Are we planning for a better life for our kids and ourselves in 20, 30, 40 years? The next thing I do on payday is to pay all of our bills. Paying your bills is obviously important. You have to have your non-negotiables paid before anything else. So that is things like your rent or your mortgage, and things like your utility bill, so that you're in a home with heat and water and things that you need. You need to have your 4 walls taken care of. So definitely make sure that your bills are the next thing in your budget. You need to make sure that you are covering everything you need to have a safe, reliable home, and you're not on the streets. That is highly important, of course. And so it's the next thing in our payday routine. Again, you can make this really simple by automating it. That is something that you know you're going to pay. It's a non-negotiable bill for a reason. You have to pay it. So you can make sure that these are automated. You know, out of your paycheck, you're going to pay that utility bill when it comes due. You know that these things are happening, so you can make sure that they're paid by automating those payments. So for us, things like our mortgage payment just pulls immediately out of our checking account every time it's due. And that's the same thing for the utility bill. It just automatically gets paid to the credit card, and then I don't have to worry about it being paid because it's already been done, it's already been automated, and I know that the bills that we need to live are done. Speaking of credit cards, that is the next thing that I personally do, is pay off our credit card. So for us personally, we get paid every week, and every week I like to go in and pay off my credit card balance and just wipe it out and have it paid for and done, because that spending on the credit card is what I had already budgeted and planned for the previous week, and I know the money's already there. So I basically take the last week's money that I had set aside for the spending and put it toward the credit card. And then that wipes off my balance. I don't have to worry about snowballing it into a debt that I can't repay. I don't have to worry about any interest charges. And the great thing is, with credit cards, you don't actually have to wait to get the rewards. The rewards are based on your spending. So you can use a credit card like a debit card. You can put things on your credit card and then pay it off weekly or daily, and you still get the rewards. Definitely check to make sure that your specific card works this way. But I use a Chase card. I use a Chase Sapphire preferred card currently. That's my favorite card right now. And we also have a Chase Freedom card. I like Chase cards for some reason. It's just kind of something I've been using for a long time. And we use those for our spending depending on the category and where we get the best rewards. And then every single week on payday, I just pay it off. I get all the rewards and I don't have to worry about paying interest. If you're paying interest on credit card debt balances, you're not actually making any money with the rewards, and it's really pointless to be using them. You might as well just go ahead and use a debit card. And if you do have trouble with credit card spending, don't use them. But if you are someone that can responsibly use a credit card, and definitely make sure you're checking your budget to make sure your spending is not going over your boundaries, over the limits you've set, then it's a great idea to just put it on the credit card and then pay it off, like as soon as you can. There's no need to wait or to pay interest on a balance. That's crazy. I pay off my card every single time I get paid, and I have great credit, and that has worked out really well for me. So that's just how we do it currently. The next thing that I do in our payday routine is move money to our sinking funds. So sinking funds are basically saving up little pots of money for eventual expenses that you'll have. And these can be a number of different things. Some people have a ton of sinking funds. Some people just have one or two. For us, we have things like our emergency fund, our travel and vacation fund. We have a car fund that is both repairs, service, and insurance. So it's kind of all car related expenses because those are kind of irregular, or they are like every 6 months you pay your car insurance. So we do have a sinking fund for that. And then personally for me, because I am self-employed, I do have a tax sinking fund because I do have to pay quarterly estimated taxes on the income that I have. So I do have a tax sinking fund, and I make sure that that is funded, never touched, and is able to just be there when I have to make my quarterly tax payments. I have several videos on sinking funds if you want to learn more about that. But if you are not sure where to keep your sinking funds, you can use a separate bank if you have trouble saving up amounts for yourself because you're constantly pulling money back into your checking. I do recommend maybe getting a second bank that you don't have a checking account at, where it's just for savings. I have done that in the past and it's worked out really well for us. I think it's really a good idea for people if you're overspending constantly, or if you're putting money in a savings account but then you're pulling it back out because, oh no, you went over. Basically making that money something that has a little bit of distance from you, a little bit of friction to get it back, makes it a little bit harder and gives you more of a chance to break that habit. And it just works out really well. It's especially if you're like a spender, you overspend often, having a separate area where you keep your savings can be really helpful. And you can also automate this. I still do this manually because I like moving money into my sinking funds. I like seeing it, but that's just a weird quirk for me. If you want to automate this, you can definitely do that. There are some banks like Wealthfront where you can automate your savings goals, and basically you can set either a monthly target or a balance that you want to hit, and then once that happens they kind of move on to the next one, and that works out really well for people too. So I do like automations that fintech allows you to do, but if you want to do it manually you can do that too, because I still do that too. But that's what we do in our paycheck routine next. So at this point in the routine, after I've got paid, I've paid my bills, I have made sure that all the automated things are happening. And then the next thing I do is to actually budget for my paycheck period, what I'm gonna spend on variable spending. So that means basically anything that's not a bill. So that's things like food, restaurants, gas, kids spending for us. If you don't have kids, that wouldn't apply obviously, but maybe your pet spending, things like that. These are areas where if you are having a really tight time with money, you can cut these. So that's why they're kind of last. It's also things where you are able to kind of be more flexible. So if you have a period where you're earning more money, or you have a paycheck where there's a lot extra, maybe you have a little bit more room to play with here and you get to have a really nice dinner out or something. Or maybe it's your birthday month and you get to spend a little bit extra. Or maybe you just don't have enough money and you're struggling and you want to use more of this spending to throw at your debt payment so that you can be debt free sooner. This is an area where you are able to cut back and be more flexible with what you're spending. I put this last because I like to make sure that I know all the important things are taken care of first, and then the fun and variable spending is done after those things are taken care of. So this has helped me pay off debt. It's helped me build up a pretty big nest egg for retirement. It's helped me get in a better place financially. And I honestly highly recommend, if you are struggling, to stop thinking of your spending first and put that last, and make sure you're paying yourself first. You're saving for big expenses that are coming into sinking funds. You are doing all of those things first before you get to this category where you're thinking, oh, I'm spending this amount of money per paycheck. Do this last and try it out and see if it works for you. For us, we actually put all of this spending on a credit card, and like I said previously, we pay it off each week. So we are putting our expenses for the week onto a card and then using that money that's in our checking account already to pay it off when we get paid. We just do it on payday because that's a nice time to remember, okay, time to pay my credit card. So we use that money that's already in the account, we pay off the credit card, and we are good to go. That's just kind of how we do it right now. Having the weekly paycheck is really helpful for that. So it never gets to be this huge balance. It's always something that is reasonable and can be paid off week to week. So that's kind of what's working for us. And even if you didn't get paid every single week, you could still use that system. If you get paid bi-weekly, you could still pay off your credit card every single week, or even every other day or so. It's something that if you want to use credit cards to get the rewards for your actual spending, for all this money that's going out, and you want a reward for it, you could just use it like a debit card and pay it off like that. The final step for my payday routine is to review everything, like my bank account